Hello and welcome to this session of The Ladder, a love letter to my sisters in the pew. This is an 18 part series. This is one of 18 that is streaming on YouTube. And it is for anybody who self-identifies with this topic. And I was thinking about what this topic is, because I've shared before that I struggle with the word abuse. Darby Strickland uses the word oppressors. I also use in my book someone who's ill-willed rather than good-willed. But I wanted to read this definition again of coercive control, which I really do like. I think it sums up what I'm trying to say better than others. It says domestic abuse in which the perpetrator subjects a spouse to a sustained pattern or repeated acts of controlling, threatening, or humiliating behavior. So this topic is for any Christian woman who is married to a man who is causing a sustained pattern of controlling, threatening, or humiliating behavior towards you. If that's what you find in your home, then I wrote this for you. The book is also called The Ladder, a love letter to my sisters in the pew. It's available on Amazon for $9.99 and Kindle form for 99 cents. That is the cheapest I could make it. I just want to make it available. I'm not doing this for any other reason than that. And if that's not available to you, I hope that these sessions find you, because I am hoping to provide some teaching through this forum. So let's get started. Excuse me. Let's get started on session 15, entitled The Longer You Stay. So I'm going to first read on page 15, session 15, page 15, if you're following along. The top of 15. This is from my story. As time went on, I did less and less outside the home. And this was towards the end of my marriage. But as time went on, I did less and less outside the home. He wanted it this way. I knew I was losing ground, but I didn't know how to make it better. I decided at one point I would approach him and suggest he needed some counseling. I wasn't sure if he knew that he had these issues, but I decided if I told him, he might get some help. So one day, when I felt he was in a good mood to accept some advice, I shared my thoughts to him, telling him I thought he needed some counseling, and ended with saying, I think you might not be aware that you need some help, but I think you do. He reached over, covered my nose and mouth with one hand, and grabbed my hands firmly with the other and said, I think you might not be aware that you are taking in oxygen, but I think you are. I think you might not be aware that you are taking in oxygen, but I think you are. He held his hands there long enough that when he let go, I was gasping for air. I got the message. The topic of needing help was off limits. So, as I said, this was towards the end of my marriage, and I am not an expert on this topic at all, but I do think that when you're first starting a marriage in these kinds of relationships, there is a component where the spouse, the husband, says, you are mine. And I feel like as that goes on, the longer you stay, the more the feeling is that you're all mine, completely belong to me, mine. The next page is 119. We'll talk some more about that too, but I'm going to move on. So this talks more about how when you first get married, you belong to you. And as time goes on, you no longer belong to yourself. You've given so many parts away that you lose your identity. So this is from Miller's book, No Visible Wounds. She may very well be in denial survival mode, which I think is such a good important spot to stop, because you are in survival mode. You don't have any other options but to survive and make the best of it. So one of those coping skills is denial. But Dr. Miller explains that abused women allow themselves to feel no indignation over having to love, honor, and obey a man who demands control over their mind, their body, and their very soul, lowering them to the rank of servant or slave, to feel no shame at bending to his will to survive, to feel no hurt at being used rather than loved. It's not fun, but pretending it's all okay when there are no other options makes life a little more bearable. So that giving away of yourself. Going to page 27. In the book, When Love Goes Wrong, the author explains that first she gives up certain activities and interests. Then she finds herself giving up her opinions, her wishes, and ambitions. And finally, she gives up her anger, her voice, her pride, and her happiness. She doesn't realize that as he is demanding more, she continually lost more, leaving very little of herself left at all. So, as time goes on, more and more of you is becoming not you, and he is becoming more and more possessive of you, so that you are then all his. Next is page 123. One, two, three. Right? 1, 2, 3. I can read 1, 2, 3. I wrote it. I should be able to read it. Oh, so this is a true story. Over the years, I've talked with numerous women, and this lady I didn't have a lot of contact with, but this goes to losing yourself, and I'll just read it. We were managing apartments when I met an 88-year-old woman named Pearl. She was renting a 1-bedroom. She had several toys, so we dropped in a few times, and my little ones played, while her and I shared a cup of tea. One day she told me that she was married, but had recently left her husband. Now again, I said this lady was 88 years old. They had spent 60 years together, but he had been abusive, including physically abusive to her, for much of their married life. I was so surprised that she had endured it for so long. A few months later, she returned to her husband, and I lost track of her. The sad truth is that women often endure the abuse for so long that they are never really able to leave and stay gone. So I'm sharing this only because it seems like for some reason, as time goes on, it becomes harder and harder to even be able to leave, because you've lost parts of yourself along the way to where there's no longer the ability to even stay gone. And then I'm going to 69, page 69. And then we're going to go back a page to 68, but we're starting with 69. So this reads, he confuses love for abuse. And again, fascinating and horrifying at the same time, but I think it's not uncommon for an abuser to say, I love you, or to say, I just loved her so much, or I did that because I loved her so much, even though it was something terrible. This is because an abuser equates love with control. He feels wronged and unloved when his partner resists his control. So that's just an explanation of that. And then this just goes into a little more about this ownership that he feels. He owns his wife, therefore she is to do with as he pleases. This is pretty dark, heavy stuff, but I do feel like it's important to share, because it goes in teaching about this, what is this spectrum of the longer you stay, the harder it is. And I don't know when that magic spot is when you're no longer able to leave, or when he thinks he owns you so much that he can do whatever he wants, including hurt the persons that he quote unquote loves. I don't know when that is, but it does seem like it exists. That spectrum exists, and so I'm talking about it. An abuser views his partner and children with a sense of ownership. Because an abuser thinks of his partner as a possession, he feels justified to treat her any way he decides. An abuser will often reduce his partner to an inanimate object in his mind, a possession, something less than a human being. This objectification, in large part, is what makes an abuser more dangerous over time. Again, over time. By depersonalizing his partner, an abuser protects himself from the natural emotions of guilt and empathy so that he can sleep at night with a clear conscience. Since he owns her, it is absolutely paramount that he keeps her under complete control. Any threat to this is perceived as disrespectful. If my control and authority seem to be slipping, I have the right to step in and reestablish my rule, including abuse if necessary. So, super difficult topic. The longer you stay, the more you lose. But I felt like it was an important topic to discuss. So, anyways, that's it for today. Thanks. Bye for now.